Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Wilson from the Knoxville News Sentinel, joined by Blake Toppmeyer, also of the Knoxville News Sentinel. We're here to evaluate Tennessee football's 2021 class, the early signing period, which opened today, runs through the next couple of days. Blake, what are our early impressions of what Tennessee has put together so far in the 2021 class?
It's been a really boring signing day, frankly, for Tennessee, and that's unusual during the Jeremy Pruitt era. You go back to Pruitt's first signing class, Tennessee signed 5 guys that day who were not committed to Tennessee entering the day. You look at last year, they also got 5 guys who were not committed to Tennessee entering the day. And then in the signing class in between was when they got Eric Gray and Quavaris Crouch, 2 4-star recruits who were uncommitted entering the early signing period. So typically Tennessee under Pruitt has made quite a bit of noise during the early period. This year, not so much. Everybody that is signed with Tennessee was committed entering the day, and it's kind of unfolded about as expected, which has the Vols sitting at 15th in the 24/7 composite rankings. So, no really bad developments, but on the flip side, no real steals here on signing day either.
How important are signing day commitments? It seems like, Alabama had a big flip today from LSU. There's buzz there might be another one. Ole Miss flipped one of Mississippi State's top commits. And we've just seen a good bit of that going around today. Is it important to make a splash on signing day? I mean, what does that do for, I guess, a program, the recruiting, or does it really matter?
I think it depends on who you're getting. Like when Tennessee got Eric Gray in that second signing class for Pruitt, got Gray to sign over Michigan. I think we can look back on that and say, yeah, that was a huge deal. If Tennessee would have lost out to Michigan on Gray, they lose not only an in-state prospect, but they lose who's now the most exciting player off their offense. But you run through the list of some other guys that they've picked up in years past on signing days, maybe some 3-star flips. I mean, there's a handful of guys that really didn't make much impact on the program. And so, if you can do good work early and then close on those guys, I think all the better. Like, take the stress out of your signing day. But, in Tennessee's position, they did good work early. They got players to commit early better than anybody in the country. There was a time where this class was ranked number 2 nationally, but then momentum stalled, which you would expect when you're 3-6, and some of the traditional powers caught up and passed them. Now, I thought that there was a chance that Tennessee could still finish maybe top 12, maybe top 10, but they had to have some things fall their way. So far, that hasn't happened. And then on top of that, their highest rated commitment, Dylan, they've not announced a signing for him. He told Ryan Callahan of Go Vols 24/7 that he intends to sign in February. Another 4-star prospect, wide receiver Jordan Mosley, remains committed to Tennessee like Brooks does, but he tweeted that he plans to sign in February. So, those are guys that Tennessee hasn't lost, but it still makes you sweat it out for a little bit longer when you would like to just get things done here in the early signing period.
And certainly with Dylan Brooks, that could be cause for concern, given that Auburn was kind of rumored to be that other school chasing him, and Auburn's in the midst of figuring out its head coaching situation. So that's obviously a question mark there. Blake, what do you like about this class? I mean, what has Tennessee done well in terms of addressing needs? And then looking ahead to the February signing period, where does Tennessee still have work to do to really round out this class?
Well, you look at it, I think they did a lot in addressing the offense here in the early signing period, particularly at the skill positions. I think they could stand to land another offensive lineman or 2. But you look at the skill spots, I mean, they got their quarterback. Caden Salter's been committed for several months. He never wavered. There was no drama with him, exactly the way you would want it to go down with a quarterback. You don't want to have to be worried about whether you're going to lose your quarterback on signing day. Tennessee didn't have to deal with that. Salter was very clear all along. He was coming to Tennessee, and he's someone that obviously adds some intrigue going into this offseason. It's been no mystery that Tennessee struggled at quarterback since Joshua Dobbs departed after the 2016 season. And now you look forward into the offseason We don't know which quarterbacks will be back, but presumably you would think Harrison Bailey at the very least would be among them. And so you're going to have a couple young quarterbacks in that competition, in a second-year guy in Bailey, which will be his first spring, of course, with spring practice being canceled this year because of the pandemic, and then Salter. So I think that adds some excitement. I really like what Tennessee's done recruiting the running back position in this class, particularly. I like Tyon Evans. I know normally I kind of preach caution when it comes to junior college signees, because so many times you see highly rated JUCO guys that come in, and oftentimes they don't have big careers at the Power 5 level. There are exceptions, certainly, but a lot of times you see highly rated guys that don't quite live up to that. But this is the #1 JUCO running back, and he looks really good on film. I mean, he's a big guy, but he moves really well as well. He was one of the top JUCO kickoff returners. That shows you not only has he just got power, he's got speed and vision as well. And then the wide receiver position. I think Walker Merrill out of Brentwood is another guy that looks really good on film. You know, there's so many high school prospects. You know, when you pull up their highlight films, it's one go route after another, running in a straight line past the defense and catching a ball downfield, or catching jump balls over smaller defenders. Walker Merrill, I mean, this is a guy that looks like he can run anything in the route tree, makes plays in the red zone. I think he looks really sharp. I mean, this is, I think, one of the better prospects in this class, not talked about a lot. And then Julian Nixon is another wide receiver they've signed. He's a little bit different. He's more of a physical presence. But both those guys are 4-star prospects. So I think, you know, Tennessee did a nice job at the skill position, but you look at defensively, there's a lot of work left to do in this class going forward. I mean, really at every level of the defense. Just a couple of 4-star prospects have signed here in this early period on defense, more so on the offensive side. And so, you know, in addition to maybe one or two more pieces on the offensive line, I think Tennessee has to address that defense, and you know, either in the days to come here in the signing period or in that February period.
Yeah, certainly looking for some immediate difference makers on the defensive side, probably on the defensive line more than anything. I mean, that's really an area where Tennessee needs help. Certainly Terrence Lewis, 5-star linebacker, is still out there. Announced his finalists as Tennessee and Maryland plans to announce his commitment publicly in January. Could sign this week, so that's on the radar there. Demarius McGee was a player Tennessee lost, who signed with LSU today, I believe. Top 100 cornerback who was committed to Tennessee for a long time. Blake, but before we kind of wrap this up, Tennessee has had 7 kids depart the class in the last 3 weeks or so. What do you make of that? Do you just assume that's kind of some of them being told, hey, don't really have room for you in this class anymore, or are these decommitments?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You look at one of those 7 is Terrence Lewis, and so a chance to reel him back in. And then, you know, you mentioned McGee. I think that's obviously a guy that they would have liked to have signed. And then I think there's some other guys that this was bound to happen with the number of commitments Tennessee had early in this process. It's always just inevitable that you're going to see guys, whether they're of their own decision or you know, of Tennessee's decision, get nudged out the door at the last minute. And some of these things, you know, I think maybe are decided a little bit before the last minute, but don't become publicly known until the final hour. But you know, when you fill up with more than 20 commitments as quickly as Tennessee did, this is kind of an inevitable thing. But along with that, though, I mean, there were some guys. You know, you mentioned notably Demarius McGee, and we'll see what happens with Lewis. But I mean, those are guys that you know, obviously, you know, you look at their ratings, those are guys that Tennessee would want to hang on to. And, you know, it's hard too. You can sell a vision, you can sell, you know, where you want to take the program, you can sell building something. But I think that at times can be easier to do for a coach earlier in his tenure. You know, this is Jeremy Pruitt's 4th signing class now, his 3rd full year on the job. And so, you know, I think at some point you have to sell results as much as you're selling vision and opportunity. And while Tennessee did really good in the early portions of assembling this signing class, and it's still, you know, it's still a decent class, they weren't able to kind of make that final push here in the last few months. And I think just the reality of it is that's hard to do when you've had a season like Tennessee has had.
That's all from us. Stay tuned for all the latest on Tennessee's recruiting class as it moves forward into the February signing period. And stay tuned on all the latest on football, basketball, and Lady Vols at Go Vols Extra and KnoxNews.com.